Mic check here. Drew, test 1, 2. Can y'all hear me? Can you hear me now? You might want to turn it up just a little bit. There we go.
Test.
Got it?
Yep.
Okay, there we go. Okay, good evening. And let me, at this time, call to order the regular business meeting of the Stephenville City Council here on Tuesday, August 6th at 5:30. And just welcome everybody here this evening to our meeting. And it's good to get out of the heat as it's pushing 104 today, I think. Before we start, I want to draw everybody's attention to this side of the room. Move the camera over there. And just everybody say happy birthday to Mr. Mark Kaiser. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mark. Happy birthday to you. Okay.
Alan, you can tell you're off the top. Thank you. Who was the bass?
Okay.
That's really not right, but thank you anyway.
All right. Talk about a setup, right? Yeah. Now, Mark, happy birthday, and thanks for all that you do with leading the city staff and for the city of Stephenville. So, it's your day.
And for those that have asked, it's 52.
Okay. So if you're thinking of getting anything for him, a deck of cards would be appropriate. So, all right, I want to mention a couple of things before we start this evening. I know there's been a lot of talk about the Cowboy Capital status, and I know that a lot of great work locally to ensure that everybody understands that we can still call ourselves the Cowboy Capital of the world, and I know July Danley and the Chamber have done a lot of good work and research with that, and our own Andrew Johnson's been working hard to make sure the Texas Legislature understands that. So Andrew, thanks for your work there too through Dr. Sheffield's office. All right, at this time, I'll see if there's any citizens' general discussion items that anyone would like to come forward to the podium and talk about. Okay. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Wendell Hollingsworth. And here tonight to speak on behalf of the Chamber and Stedco, and I know that you good folks will be discussing later tonight the potential creation of a TIF district. And I want to report that the Chamber and Stedco unanimously supports those efforts. And we're willing and to pledge, the Stedco will pledge $1,500 towards the initial assessment, and that the Chamber would pledge $500 towards the initial assessment. And I'd also speak on behalf of the Texas Health Resources here in the hospital here in Stephenville, and they have agreed to pledge $1,500 to that assessment as well. And I would just like to say on behalf of both the Stedco and the Chamber, we're very excited about the opportunity to work with the council and the city leaders and to drive economic development in this great community. And we're very excited about that opportunity and look forward to making that a very strong allegiance. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, if not, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is to consider a request for relief from the requirement for advanced wireless metering.
We had a request from Miss Sue Gay Dorsett, and I'll let her come up and make her presentation
Okay.
and visit with you, and then I'll respond to a little bit about,
Okay.
if we can, and maybe, Mr. Evans, I know you're very familiar with this situation. Maybe you might even I know you have presented to the council at one point in time, back during the legislative session, some of the concerns and maybe some of the communication that we have had with our legislators about this as she's coming up to visit with us just a little bit.
Thank you, Mark. The council will remember that I brought the issue to the council to begin with about citizens' ability to opt out of the wireless electric meter. That there was some legislation in this session. We hoped that it would get passed. It never got out of committee, as I understand it. I believe now the same matter is before the Public Utility Commission now to give people a chance to opt out. I don't know what Susan is going to ask for or Gay's going to ask for tonight, but I suspect she's going to ask for some sort of support, and certainly I hope that we will give that to her. But I've known Gay for probably longer. It doesn't bother me, but it probably bothers her how long we go back to little kids. We were raised about 100 yards from each other. So, but anyway, Gay, you want to come up?
Just right over here.
I might say that Steve Peacock was in that neighborhood as well.
Very much. I was just so young and small.
Well, I don't know that I really have prepared comments. I understand I have 3 minutes. I've told a joke that would be 3 minutes long. And so it seems to be such a brief time to discuss such a serious subject. I moved home to safety, only to learn that my safety had been taken away. I had absolutely no forewarning, none whatsoever, that there was going to be a wireless meter slapped on my 100-year-old home. Wasn't there when I left earlier. We worked on that house on Long Street that my grandparents built for years now. I spent several uninterrupted weeks up here with an analog meter on my house, and I experienced such incredible improvement in my condition. It was indeed measurable by my physicians, who were flabbergasted. And I began to make an issue to myself as to what in the world would be the difference in Stephenville, Texas, other than the fact that it's Stephenville, Texas, and Austin, where I do have a smart meter. It's in a unusual location, far away from the living space, and it's on a home that is not stucco with wire in the stucco. There was something I never had any kind of an analyzer. I didn't make the connection, but something moved me to go to a meeting one night on smart meters, and why all of a sudden they began to appear, and I realized that I had to get my dukes up real fast to see if I could not protect my community and myself, and I'll be dipped if it didn't get slapped on my home before I could get here. If I'd known it were coming, I would have strapped myself to it, and I would have made the pages of the paper as someone tried to drag me away. Other people have done it with a sidearm. Might have thought of that, but I more than likely would have attached myself to my meter in such a way that they couldn't take it, because in the location it is It has, you'll see it, it's there. I mean, everybody now in Stephenville, Texas, everybody with the Public Utility Commission, go ahead and read it. It's all out there. I can describe my physical condition. I can describe my radiation treatment and the fact that I'm absolutely cooked and the fact that my my oncologist says he's never seen a patient who has more damage than I from being over-radiated. He is entirely supportive of my request to remove my wireless devil meter and give me my analog meter back. And if they claim they don't have one, I do. It's in my office. And you can go home right now, and if you want to help me, we'll chop that thing off my home, and we'll call my good electrician, and we'll get me safe again. I don't think I'm the only one who's been hurt badly. I think there will be many, many people in Stephenville who have not done the reading that I did, who didn't make the connection, who doesn't have a master's degree in audiology, so that I could begin to understand the force and the magnitude and the danger of these high frequencies that are pulsing through our homes. What in the world have we done? We've put ourselves in this giant grid. I never understood the grid. Did you know that when Encore came out and checked, there were 10 other meters communicating with mine? And there's not any telling. I mean, they're square miles, thousands of square miles of wireless. Do I need cash? It's a red button. Help us. It isn't safe for Stephenville. Please pay attention. I have a red button. I have a red light. Please pay attention. It's hard to read. Curtis Bennett is hard to read. If you are offended by someone who's outspoken and feels passionately, just ignore him. Interview with Thermo guy, Curtis Bennett, is in there. There's much. Please pay attention to what he says. Find it where he says he believes that we're leading to our own extinction. You bet he's passionate, and he is willing to do a Skype presentation with this council at no charge. Find it, it's in there. I thank you for being responsive to me a few months ago and helping me. I want to come home. Please help me come home. Please help me come home to a safe spot. And thank you for hearing me out.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mayor, if I might,
Yes.
just a couple of comments. If you look, I really haven't looked at the book that Gay gave us, but I'm sure it's a lot of information that I've probably seen before. There's a lot of information here that suggests that these radio waves are causing people that have been exposed to a lot of radiation health problems. If you talk to Encore, they'll say there's no harm. To me, it's not a matter of arguing over is it harmful or is it not harmful. To me, there's still a question that there's a possibility that it's harmful. And I think that every citizen needs to have the right to take that damn meter off their house if they want to. And this was in the legislature. The legislature, really most of their discussion revolved around the extra cost that a customer might pay because their meter was going to have to be read personally. They somehow seem to get caught up in the cost and never got around to dealing with the question. But certainly the question is in front of the PUC. We got an email today from Ken Harris, and we got it from City Hall. I guess they got it from Ken Harris. The PUC is to take this up again Friday the 9th, this Friday. And my request to the City Council is that we administratively have Mark write another letter in support of citizens' ability to opt out of this meeting. And if it's proper, I'd make a motion that we ask Mark to do that.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Well, is there any discussion? I don't know that we need a motion to do that. I mean, Mark, that's,
You or I, one can,
Yeah.
we can prepare something and send it.
okay.
You know, just for the council's benefit, we have stayed involved in this matter and continued to stay in communication both with our state senator and our state representatives' offices, and continue to provide letters of support, in essence, allowing for the opt-out provision is what it really has come down to. Again, as councilman member said, we plan on, and we have already been in touch with representatives' office, and they understand our commitment here. But I very much appreciate the support, and we'll, the mayor I-1 will be sending something to clarify our belief here in Stephenville. Because we're going to be looking at something very similar to our water meters, and for those, and we, some utilities, there's been a little confusion. I do want to kind of give this piece. There is some confusion about some cities own and operate their electric systems, and they're not run and operated by the larger companies, and the local communities can then in turn opt out. So there have been many cities that operate their own systems that have already got the opt-out provisions. And so we're finding out, and I'm finding out more and more, that it really is the norm to allow the opt-out. So I'm a little bit confused as to why the PUC or whoever makes this decision, and maybe it's over money, but we'll continue to keep supporting the ability to opt out and have this local, what I'm going to call local option. And I'll continue to commit to this community that we will continue to fight to protect our ability to decide who we want to be every day. And we do that every day. And so.
Okay. So let's agree to do two things tonight, because I think we all are supportive, and I'll speak for the council, of the dilemma and the importance for there to be an opt-out option. And so there's nothing wrong with you contacting your representative at the state level with that issue. I will call him tomorrow. I'll commit to you tonight to do that, and then Mark and I will work on a letter to send to the open meeting with that same effect. And I think anybody in this community has that ability to do that. And so hopefully tonight your message has raised the awareness of that, and we thank you for coming forward with that message. Yeah.
Do you know what time the meeting is Friday in Austin at the PUC? Do you know the date or the time? You said it's Friday.
We need to find out. Evidently Ken Harris at Encore knows, because he sent out this email.
It'll be posted, but no, I do not have that time.
You think if it's in the afternoon, I'd like to know, because I'm planning to be there testifying for another committee. I'll go to that meeting.
Okay.
Also, would it not be appropriate for this council to pass a motion and request that, at least in this particular case, that the utility allow her to change her meter, that we make a public request as a council, say, why can't you change this one for now until PUC gives you direction?
We've already asked. You can try again.
I mean, but as a council.
And as continued support, that's great.
I think it'd be appropriate for us as a council to make a motion and pass a motion that from the council that the utility commission or the utility be asked to give that option for her because of what she's requested. I think Gay is definitely a scientist. I mean, I've known her for years, and she understands. She's not just a fly-by-night that just reads a bunch of stuff and says, this is what I think. She is a scientist.
Well, Mr. Evans, do you want to form that?
I'd be glad to make a motion that we,
And my oncologist letter, excuse me, but my oncologist letter very
I think a motion would be a good thing for us to do, and request
I'd
it
be glad
from,
to make a motion
Okay.
that we make a request to PUC that Gay be, you know,
or I guess the
singled out.
utility company.
Well,
Would it be
right now it's
PUC
at
or
the
the?
PUC, so I think it,
Encore has consistently referred this to the PUC, not only to her, but to us. And it is, again, their decision.
Scott, what if we
And
made a motion that would look for an opt-out option pending the PUC decision? Because that's in the benefit of the member that needs the action now versus waiting.
so moved.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Evans has made a motion for us to request officially to the Public Utility Commission an opt-out option immediately pending decision by the commission on that ability, and that motion is seconded by a bunch of folks. Mr. McDaniel, and any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's a unanimous vote. Ma'am, I tell you what, for the sake of time, we support you, okay? And if you've got some other things, some points you want to make, just in the deference of time, I'd prefer that we defer that now, if you don't mind, okay? Okay.
So
And we can get together after the meeting and talk some more.
if we, I guess my question, our motion was to ask the PUC to do something immediately. Could we not, as the council, go directly to Encore and say, we request that also, and make them say no to us?
That has been made.
Right.
From the council or from the city administration?
We have asked Encore, I think everybody,
Right. Right.
and they tell us that the PUC mandated this to them and that they have no
Right.
choice.
Right.
The meter, you know, Gay made reference to the meter. There are some places that don't have a meter on their house, but they stopped it. Literally, with a handgun, they stopped the installation of the meter.
Yeah.
And they haven't been able to install meters in every place. But if you've got a meter, they won't come take it off.
Yeah.
So,
Mayor,
Okay.
so
Yes.
we don't have the authority to authorize her to take
no.
her own meter off, okay.
Yeah.
Was that your question? Okay.
Right.
But you'll let me know.
We do not have the authority to supersede state law, and that's the issue.
That's a very concise way to put it, and that's what we're up against, and that's what Encore's up against. So,
Will you let me know when the PUC, if it's Friday afternoon, I'll attend the meeting, and I'll speak to the city.
okay.
Text that to you, Steve.
All right, good discussion, and this is a really important issue, so. All right, we're going to move on now to the next agenda item, which is Julie Crouch, Executive Director of the Cross Timbers Fine Arts Council, and her annual report and budget presentation. So, Julie?
Thank you. On behalf of the Cross Timbers Fine Arts Council Board of Directors, I would like to say how truly grateful we are to the city of Stephenville and members of the council for your ongoing support of our organization and its programs. For over 30 years, we have continued our mission to make the arts accessible and present fine art events that inspire, educate, and entertain our citizens. Our programs are often the only opportunity many of our citizens have to experience the arts firsthand. We were chartered in 1980 as a 501c3 nonprofit corporation and are funded through membership dues, fundraising activities, grants, corporate and private donations, as well as city hotel motel tax. We sponsor or co-sponsor 15 to 20 arts-related events throughout the year to promote cultural tourism. These events include ballet, concerts, theater productions, monthly art exhibits, and receptions. We also sponsor summer art and theater camps for children, as well as youth art exhibits. We continue to host monthly exhibits at River North Gallery featuring artists from our 8-county service area. These exhibits and receptions are open to the public and continue to draw visitors from across the region. Here are a few of our highlights from last year. Last October, we were proud to present Oh What a Night concert, a musical tribute to Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, benefiting the Birdsong Cole Youth Art Fund. This concert was generously underwritten by Bull Nettle and Signs Express Plus, and it was a musical treat for all. In December, we presented our annual free classical concert featuring nationally acclaimed musicians through the Piatigorsky Foundation. We also hosted our second performance of the Cross Timbers Area Community Theater with a sellout performance of the best Christmas pageant ever, under the direction of Micah Parsons. Over 30 cast members of all ages participated in this very special performance. Last March, we presented 2 performances of Ballet Austin's Snow White, which was underwritten by the Birdsong Cole Youth Art Fund and the Texas Commission on the Arts. Over 800 area school children attended the matinee for free, and later that evening, we presented a public performance at a nominal fee. Both performances were presented in memory of our founder, Connie Birdsong. In keeping with our mission in creating arts experiences for all, we work with the Stephenville ISD music therapist, Kathy Canal, to offer the Accessible Arts Clubhouse to our Erath County Life Skills students. We are in the 2nd year of this program, which is made possible through funding from Erath County United Way. We are a volunteer-driven organization with over 350 members. We are governed by a board of 11 volunteer directors who are elected to a 3-year term. A full-time director and assistant manage our growing business and financial affairs. I personally invite each of you to join the Cross Timbers Fine Arts Council and participate in our activities. It's an investment in your cultural community and will leave a lasting legacy for the inspiration, enjoyment, and education of our citizens. Also, on our budget, it was brought to my attention that we were a little too conservative on our revenue, and our expenses exceed the revenue numbers. So I would like the opportunity to look at those numbers again, if that's okay, and present it to the council.
Okay,
Thank
that'll be
you.
fine. Okay, any comments or questions for Julie? Okay, well, go ahead.
Do you have a balance, and as part of the budget process, Mark, do we get a balance sheet?
This is part of the budget process, no. A balance sheet of the
Well,
hotel,
it-
motel tax fund total,
No,
or
no, no,
of their,
looking
of
at-
their,
looking at the
of their
income
balance
expense, if we have a budget income and budget expense, which instead of a cash flow projection and.
it's whatever their report
Whatever
is.
their
We
report,
don't,
okay.
we don't produce that. It's their responsibility to report that to you. So if you have a question, you need some more information, I'd ask, and I
I'd
apologize
encourage
for
you
that.
when you come back next time to bring it, I like personally, would like to see one.
Okay.
Just a balance sheet, just basically check, and I don't care about the check, what the checks were for, but kind of look at cash flow and look at your expenses versus income from an actual tax basis.
I'm happy to do that.
As-
When we release the second quarter taxes, I will have a ballot for.
You will have that, okay.
Okay.
Then that'll work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Walter.
Thank you, Walter.
Thank you.
Anything else for Julie?
Mayor,
Yes.
I would just like to say, Julie, thank you for all that you do for this organization.
Thank you.
They are very fortunate, and the entire community is blessed to have someone of your talents to serve the community. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Well, you sit down, but I'm going to echo those comments. And I'm also going to say God bless the Birdsong family for all that they meant to this community, and just Julie, for your leadership of the fine arts program within our community. You're impacting youth, and you're impacting those that are artists in our area to have a way to display their talents, and it's a very important part of our community. So thank you for all that you're doing.
Mayor, I move approval of the Cross Timbers Fine Arts Council Annual Report.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. McDaniel, seconded by Mr. Evans to approve the Cross Timbers Fine Arts Council Annual Report. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion carries a unanimous vote. All right. This time we'll move on to the Planning and Zoning Commission portion of the agenda. And the first item is going to be a public hearing to consider the request to rezone from B2 Retail and Commercial Business District to R3 Multiple Family Residential District, Lot 18 and 19, Block 4, the Denham Addition. So, Betty?
Thank you, Mayor. The Planning and Zoning Commission considered this request at their July meeting. It does come forth with a favorable recommendation to rezone this property at 110 North Dale from B2 Retail and Commercial Business District to the R3 Multiple Family Residential District. There is an existing single-family dwelling located on the property. The owner does desire, if rezoning is accomplished, to construct a storage building on this piece of property with their residence. Of course, the residence presently is a non-conforming use, so we cannot issue a permit for any additions to the residential use. So that is the reason for their request. She is here this evening if you have any questions. There is also an ordinance on page 13 which would affect the zoning change if you concur with the Commission's recommendation. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have regarding the staff report.
Okay, any questions?
So as long as it's conforming use to R3, it'd be whatever she wants to put in there, but just out of curiosity, what's she gonna put, what's her intent on that property?
At the present time, she wants to construct a storage building
Storage building?
at the back of the property. It's not a large residence. There would be room for an addition to the residence if she desires at a later time.
So a personal storage building or commercial?
Yes, a personal storage building.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this time I'll ask if there's anyone that would like to come forward to speak in favor of the rezoning. Okay, seeing none, is there any, oh, okay, come forward, I'm sorry, didn't see you over there.
Mayor, you need to open the public hearing.
I did at the beginning, before I called Betty.
Good afternoon, ladies and
Thank you,
gentlemen. My name is Lyra Lewis. I'm the owner of 110 North Dale. And as she explaining all the stuff that was going on in my house, I just bought the house and I didn't know that if you're commercial, if 50% of your house, something tornado, fire came up, you can rebuild it. And I just started my family, and I'm intending to stay in Stephenville to raise my family. And due to that, you know, it comes to my concern, and then we go to the zoning officer, and plus we want to put storage because we had 2 bedrooms only, and we had a lot of kid stuff that we need to put in the storage, and we don't have room for it. So he recommended R3 for us, and hopefully y'all considered it.
Okay, any questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Any others wishing to speak in favor of the? Okay, seeing none, any of those wishing to speak in opposition? Okay, seeing none, at this time I'll close the public hearing, and at this time consider a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I
Mr.
move that
Hogan.
we approve ordinance number 213-11. It wasn't very
Okay,
clean,
been
sorry.
moved by Mr. Hogan and seconded by Ms. Taylor to adopt ordinance 2013-11, rezoning from B2 Retail and Commercial Business District to R3 Multiple Family Residential District, lots 18 and 19, Block 4, Denham Addition, located at 110 Northdale Avenue. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's a unanimous vote approving the ordinance as stated. All right, at this time, I'll open a public hearing to consider a request to rezone from R2, 1 and 2 Family Residential District to R3 Multiple Family Residential District, lots 11, 12, and 13, Block 7, Cage Addition, located at 385 East Elm Street. And Ms. Chu.
Thank you, Mayor. The Planning and Zoning Commission considered this request at their July meeting, and it comes forth with a favorable recommendation to rezone this property, which is located at 385 East Elm Street, which is the corner of Elm and Bates, from R2 to R3 Multiple Family Residential District. This is vacant property. There are no structures located on it at this time. The owner, Mr. Hanson, representing Trafalgar Homes, is here if you have any questions. And there is also an ordinance on page 20, which would affect this zoning change. And if you have any questions regarding the staff report, I would be happy to answer those.
Any questions for Betty?
Did you have any negative feedback from for any of the people you sent letters to?
We have not had any I have not had any feedback on this request.
Mr. Nix?
Betty, this is 3 lots, right?
Yes, sir.
But we're rezoning all 3 of these, but not replatting them. It's still 3 individual lots that we're rezoning.
Yes, sir. It is 3 individual lots, 11 through 13.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'd open the floor now to anyone that would like to come and speak in favor of the request. Okay. Mr. Hanson?
I'm Andy Hanson, 943 Private Road 807, Stephenville, Texas. Really just here to answer any questions if there are any about this proposal.
Okay. Any questions for Andy? Okay. Thanks, that was easy. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the request? All right, seeing none, anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the request? Okay, seeing none, at this time I'll close the public hearing and consider a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt ordinance number 2013-12.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Pendleton, seconded by Mr. Nix to consider adopting ordinance 2013-12 rezoning from R2 1 and 2 family residential district to R3 multiple family residential district, lots 11, 12, and 13, block 7, Cage Addition, located at 385 East Elm Street. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carries, ordinance 2013-12 as stated. All right, thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a public hearing regarding an assessment of the cost for curb and gutter installation. And before I open the public hearing, I'd just like an explanation from Mark, either you or Randy, about the purpose of the hearing.
The purpose of the hearing is, can you hear me? You hear me okay? Okay. The purpose of the hearing for the assessments is that we are required to give, in essence, some general notification, allow that opportunity before we intend to actually set and establish that respective assessment. We, in all of our development standards, say that when someone in an undeveloped piece of property, and let me just use an example that's going to, we just had a zoning request change for someone, and we are very aware within the last 6 months that someone on Alexander Road had put in a request to build some apartments. I think that was on would be the west side of Alexander Road, kind of up closer to the loop, okay? When they submitted their development plans on any undeveloped property, you're required to also put in the curb and gutter at that point, tie into the street and have the curb and gutter and address all the other development standards. When we come in, and in this particular case, we're taking an extended area and putting that in, we're still asking that undeveloped piece of property to pay for that curb and gutter, just like they would when they were going to develop that piece of property at whatever time. However, we felt it is of the public nature, public health and safety of this community, to build that road now, to put that curb and gutter in now, and establish that cost so that when they develop that undeveloped property, then they will pay that as a part of their development cost. So what we are doing here is we have seen it fit to make the improvements on Alexander Road, and we are notifying and trying to begin the process of establishing that and basically letting those know that have undeveloped properties on Alexander Road, that when they build their property, we're putting the curb in now, and we're going to set in a price of, right now, we have an estimate. We are required to give an estimate. The estimate is at $25. I will tell you that again, it's actual cost after it's all over with, and we take that cost and divide it by the linear feet for everyone. But only the undeveloped properties will have to be assessed. I can tell you, we have, I'm gonna say, as an engineer does, you estimate high, but I do anticipate that to be actually around $20. I'm just gonna kinda just let you know, but we have to go and make our public statement. It's no different than I would. Publicly, we're saying $25. That's what our budget was. That's what the engineer's estimates were when we were going through there. As they're pouring the concrete, we're getting done. I do anticipate at the end of the project, when the project's completed, we close it out, we know what our exact costs were, we take that cost and then apply, and we'll establish a rate and let those undeveloped property owners know that they will, when they develop, owe X amount times whatever that set amount will be. And again, but we are required to have a public hearing and notify them that that's what we're doing prior to the establishment of the true process. So that's what we're doing here. We've had many phone calls, we've had many visitors, and I can tell you we've even had a neighborhood meeting addressing some very similar concerns here about 6 months ago with the Greenbrier edition, for those that may have shown up there. And the same questions or concerns there. As simple as I can just state it, our policies and our administration of the policies have been, this assessment is on the undeveloped pieces of property. So if you have a house on that piece of property right now, those property owners are not going to have to pay for it. I mean, when we accepted it, we accepted their house, we accepted their building construction, then we kind of knew what we were getting into. But we're asking the developer, when they come in, that and basically just pay us back for that part that's right out in front of their property. That's what this is. That's what this procedure is about. And I just want to make sure that it is clear we are only talking about the undeveloped pieces of property. I know I repeated myself a couple of times on this one because it is important to note that particular piece of it, and it is identified here. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any other questions. It's procedural in nature. We do not set the rate, nor do we complete this establishment process until after the construction has been completed. But if you would, or at least my understanding in my layman's terms are, we're trying to give them general courtesy as we're doing this, that, hey, this is what we're doing and how it works. So,
Mark, excuse me, not to get nitpicky, but
Well, I'll tell you what, just a second, let me let him finish, and then I'll open up the public hearing, and we're gonna have a dialogue about this, so
And I am
appreciate
done.
it. You're, okay. All right, Randy, you got anything to add?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mark. So at this time, I'll open a public hearing regarding an assessment of the cost for curb and gutter installation on Alexander Road from West Long Street to West South Loop. And entertain anyone wishing to come forward and speak on this issue. I know I've got a couple of, so Mr. Peacock.
Yeah. Steve Peacock, 101 Hudson Drive, Stephenville, Texas. Just a quick question or two, Mark. Really, I understand exactly what you're saying, but on areas like I've got a 50-foot easement, that's affected by this with some land that's going to be developed inside there. So I mean, am I going to pay my 50 feet of linear feet and then tear an entrance into it, and obviously I have to pay for, to cut the curb and to put in my entrance. So I'm just not sure how that works. And up when we have a larger piece of property down on the other end, where we're going to make cuts, so we pay for a linear feet, regardless of how many entrances or exits we have coming in out of the property.
It is modified, and I'll just tell you that if you know where your cut is going to be, we've been trying to work along that route with those to try to obviously save everybody the time, money, and effort to do so. And if we haven't or haven't there, but the intent is not to. And what I'm going to kind of hear you sort of say is, you sort of double charge here for a piece of concrete, and that's not the intent here. And that's not the intent here.
Okay.
And
We
we
already
work
had
with you
about-
because we recognize the street cut that's going to have to be
We already had about 200 feet of curb there on our property. We'll give that to you for $10 a foot, if that's it. No. Just kidding.
I'm not, yeah. Does it have rebar in it?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Peacock. Anyone else wishing to speak on the issue? Mr. Hanson, you're waving? Okay, I had your form here, so I thought I'd ask. Anyone else? Okay, anyone on the council? Mr. Savine.
One of the questions that came up with another request that we had before us a few months ago for rezoning, and I had calls from probably 15 or 20, maybe mark 20 residents that had the questions that as we were looking at going down Dale Street and then across on Tapp Street, when that conversation came up, the question came up that what if I changed my drive from a one drive to a two drive? If I put something else in the back of my property or some other changes, am I going to have those assessments even though my house is sitting there? And the understanding that some of them had was that there would be an extra assessment if they changed anything on their lot. Is that? I just want to clarify that because I told them I didn't think so, but I want to clarify that here.
And I think you're kind of referring to what Mr. Peacock was kind of saying, at least I think that's what I'm sort of hearing you say. Let's just say they had a one-car drive, and we poured the concrete, and we put a one-car drive in. Let's just say. I don't, my experience has been, I don't think we do that too much anymore on any of the residential lots.
Well, but there's property all up and down the street that people currently have, and the question would be if they made a change in their property.
And we work with them to do what else makes sense, but the question was, and again, that's what Mr. Peacock said, is we just poured the concrete there. And so obviously, we're going to have to cut it out and put a drive there to build apartments or houses or duplex or whatever else he might want to develop there. And so he's going to have to cut out a piece, and why should he have to pay for that piece and then pay for the drive there, is what he said. And I understand that, and that's not the intent here. It's to pay for, you know.
And that's an undeveloped property you're talking about.
Because we are assisting, and we have had many along the route that, you know, if they've requested some of the curb cuts, you know, they're either agreeing to pay for it or we're working some stuff out there along those same lines.
Well, this particular question, one particular individual went to lunch with me and is asking the question, it was his understanding that if he made a change like that's an existing structure, not a new structure, that we had run water and sewer past his property, or were going to, and if they made a change to the property, they would have an assessment on that, even though they weren't tying into it.
And again, I feel, and there's some residents here that were at that public hearing. I think we resolved those issues, and that's not been, you're referring to the Greenbrier, and we met with all those, and, you know, the concept is it's not if somebody wants to just widen their driveway or add on to their garage, but if somebody demos a house and wants to turn that little drive into an apartment complex at that, let's just say something happens along those lines, like we saw here where we had business go to residential, maybe potentially some apartments. Well, then those development costs are gonna, we're just asking them to continue to pay their part. And if you know, if it's all been paid for and we're done, then no, they don't have that. But obviously, if they would have had to have put that in, then, you know, they're gonna incur potentially some of those costs, and that's what the assessment is. But if they already had a house there, it's passed, is paid for.
Okay, the other question I have then deals with utilities and street construction. Is there an assessment for that same, and Steve says 200 linear feet about on his curb? Is he also going to have a street assessment and utility assessment? And what's the difference in that and the other properties we've had considerations for?
No, not the street assessment, because and the issue there has been the acceptance of the street and or the development cost required for that developer, if that they're required to put the street in as a part of their development, okay? But the street exists, street's already been accepted, paid for, it's public, completely public right of way. And and I kind of know where you're referring to, in my mind, and that creates a different situation, is really what I'm trying to say. But no, they do not have any street assessments in this regard.
For utilities.
They
Other than
will
tie- other
have
than-
to pay,
other
and
than
it's,
cuts.
we don't call it assessment. In that situation, we don't call it an assessment because, in this particular case, they do have to pay for their pro rata portion to connect their facilities. And as they connect their facilities, a developer's obligation is to pay for the water and sewer line that is only in front of their property, okay? And now, the developer would have to do whatever it takes to run it from the last point to your point. But in this particular case, they are prorated. We take that cost of whatever that was, and that part is prorated if it has not already been paid as a part of that development. So the ones that did not have sewer, for instance, because I know the very end lot up on the corner did not have sewer. And we've been able to sewer that now. So when they connect, they're gonna have to pay from their frontage line of that
For the sewer.
particular site. Yeah, because now they have sewer, and we've now improved with a utility there.
But street's not part of it.
And the street is not a part of the assessment piece under these circumstances, and we have never done that in these circumstances. And now, I will tell you that the law allows us to, but we, as a council in the city, have not chosen to ever do that.
Okay.
From a street perspective, but we have done it on the curb and gutter and the others.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I guess it's my turn. I got a couple. We posted tonight's agenda under the authority of Chapter 314. Could we speak to that use versus 313 or 311?
I haven't compared them. This is the authority to do the street assessments. I can compare those if you want.
Okay, would you please, because the hearing text is clearly in 313, and the home rule guidance or ordinance or law is in 311. I don't want to belabor tonight's discussion about Alexander Road, but I think personally this is an area that is affecting economic development in Stephenville, Texas. And I think that the hearing that we are having tonight, I don't know that it fully complies with the hearing guidance that's in 313. So I would like for us to look at that before we take credit for a hearing tonight. The way that we've distinguished developed from undeveloped is not mentioned anywhere in any of those three chapters in the Transportation Code. And so I'm curious where that distinction has come from, and I think we need to look at that. I'm also interested in us possibly looking, as other cities have, of when we use curbs, period, versus the benefits of water infiltration with earth embankments versus concrete curbs. I realize that this issue is not an issue to be decided tonight, but we also have a $25 per linear foot figure in here that, according to some builders I've talked to in town, double states by a magnitude of 2 what the cost for city code compliance curbs are. And if we are tonight agreeing to 25 feet, I think the council needs to understand that. The chapters also speak to inequitable assessment. And I think that gets to the developed versus undeveloped issue. Why are we singling out people that have not developed their property for the assessment when we improve a road? And I just would like for us as a council to maybe step back and look at this issue. Let me just read what chapter 311 says that the assessment may not exceed the amount by which the improvement specially benefits the owner's abutting land by enhancing the land's value. What that says is that you can assess for what the value of the lot improves by, not the cost of the linear feet of curb. Now, I realize we haven't used 311, but 311 is specifically a home rule city code item. And we also have drawn an excerpt from 313 in our subdivision ordinance. But that doesn't outline a very detailed hearing process that's in 313, and we have not complied with that tonight. And so what I would like for us to do is to reconsider this item, or realize, Mark, that we need to put this on an agenda in the future for this hearing, and specifically go back and look at 313 within the council versus 311 as it relates to this. So that's procedural, I realize, and that's a lot of bureaucracy, but the procedures that are in 313 are cumbersome on purpose, so that we ensure we don't overcharge citizens in the community for things we're requiring of them. And so we owe it to the Steve Peacocks and the Andy Hansons of the world to not overcharge. And we also owe it, I think, to our entire community to ask this question about, should we charge this assessment in undeveloped land? And why are we doing that? This may seem like a minor issue, but I think that it's a very significant issue for our council as we look at the impact to the economy. And I know that we've got some opportunity here maybe to ask ourselves, what are we doing with this item, and how do we want to proceed? So any comments or thoughts about that?
Yeah, I ask a question what you meant. I want to make sure I understand. We have lawyers in this room, so I'm not going to play lawyer. Is what you're saying is that your reading of the code says that if we do an improvement and it causes a lot to increase from, say, 30,000 to 40,000, that's the most that you believe we can charge as an assessment because it increased the value of the property by $10,000.
That's what Chapter 311 says. And what I'd like to ask Randy and Mark to help us is to clarify what is the difference between and the application of 311, 313, and 314 as it relates to assessments in the city of Stephenville. Because we have an excerpt in our subdivision ordinance from 313. But that doesn't require us to go through it's a very detailed, where there's 3 public notices, and then we have this hearing, and then there's a detail of the cost. And it's intended to be very difficult to get through because you don't want to overcharge a citizen for that assessment. And nowhere in here does it distinguish between developed and undeveloped. And so that's another specific question. One is, what's the process, 311, 313, 314. The second is this developed versus undeveloped. And for us to look at that and how we're applying it in our community. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
can
sir.
I make one more statement?
Yes, sir.
Quickly. One thing while we're on this subject, I know many of you are aware, if someone does an improvement in an older area of town, and they bring a house, say they move a house in, and they wind up having to put curb and gutter in front of that house, which in many times is detrimental to the whole street, because all of a sudden now you have a curb in one spot, and it's never going to get completely curb and gutted. I mean, not in anybody's lifetime that I know. It's just there are some older areas I think we need to look at, and we need to make some assessments, as you said earlier, that these areas are not really suited for curb and gutter. Let's just assume that that's true and not try to spot curb and gutter here, there, somewhere, just for the sake of a rule. But just, let's use some common sense in some of these older areas and do what makes sense for the community. Obviously, any new development, some of the older areas that we're looking at, and you just got one house with a curb and gutter in front of it, it's not only looks ridiculous, sometimes causes a problem on the other property worse than it was to begin with.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, at this time, I'll close the public hearing then and move on to agenda item 7, which is the Personnel Committee report from, and turn over to Ms. Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor. On July 9, the Personnel Committee met. That included myself, Doug Sabine, Scott Evans, and Casey Hogan. Just a little bit of history on the contents of our discussion there. Earlier this year, the Personnel Committee requested staff to collect some proposals from some personnel consulting firms. Basically, the object of that would have been to, for some of these firms, to provide a compensation study on our pay plan, which is something we've been struggling with. Sorry, is that better? Something we've been struggling with to get on the right track for some time now. So, as requested, staff did bring forward to the committee 4 proposals, and from several qualifying firms. And the price tag on these proposals ranged from the area of $12,000 to up to $50,000 for a consulting project. There's a lot of discussion between the committee members. There was some discussion between those that were not on the committee. But after looking at the things that these firms were offering to provide, and some of those things that they would have done was to review a current job description in our compensation plan as it is now. They would review the city budget. They would identify competitive employment areas, such as our weaknesses and our strengths, as to what we could do to improve our competitive market there. And they would have assisted us in developing a competitive compensation plan for our employees. And there was many other things that they would have done. But the bottom line was the committee decided, and the consensus of committee was that these are the types of things that our staff could also do, especially with our directors and the qualified staff that we have. Nobody knows better more than our budget and our current pay structure than we do. So the recommendation was to recommend that staff conduct the survey within house. Another concern was the deadline. One of the concerns that was discussed on one of the firms that we were actually discussing, which was the lower end. We had an offer from public sector. That was the consulting firm we were considering approving. Their price tag was a minimum of $12,000, and they were going to have a report within 60 days. That would not have met our deadline for our budget considerations. So this would not have been information that would have played into our budget. That being considered, we decided that not to spend that money and to have staff provide this information to us no later than November 1st. And the reason that is to give staff some time to collect the information and provide us a report so that we could vote on it in November. And with that, I will make a motion that staff conduct the survey in-house with a deadline of November 1st.
Second.
Okay, so are you rolling all 3 of those into one? Or are you
I think I'll
gonna-
do it one at a time.
Okay, all right.
I'll just start with that one.
All right, so we've got a motion by Ms. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Evans to consider approval for staff to conduct the salary survey with a deadline of 1 November. Any discussion?
Mayor, I have some observations and comments that I'd like to share
Okay.
before the vote is taken. Some of this is repetitive. I didn't talk to Martha, and I mentioned a few of the same things that she did. And I'm not in agreement with the motion. I think that all of our city employees deserve the best that we can do in this situation. On July 9th and 16th, the Personnel Committee met to discuss options for an employee staffing and compensation study. The objective was to attract and retain quality, customer-friendly employees. by providing the council accurate comparison information regarding competitive wages and benefits through survey data by an objective third party. Let me say that again, by an objective third party. That's what was in the Personnel Committee's agenda. The City of Stephenville, as a regular business practice, contracts with professionals that are experts in the field. Examples are Kenneth Weath, our independent insurance consultant, K&P Associates for specialized billing collections, Strickland Rollins for engineering services such as our new streets, reconstruction of our old streets, park master plan, sanitary sewer projects, and easement acquisitions, etc. Patillo Brown and Hill LLP, they have done in the past our annual city audits. Heart of Texas Inspection Services for water tower work, pipeline analysis, wastewater, and collection engineers for sewer line work. Number 7, tank industry consultants. Number 8, these are professionals that the city contracts with because they're experts in their field. Number 8, CH2M Hill / OMI. There are water treatment plant contractors. KSA engineers through TxDOT contract the airport layout design. And lastly, of the examples that I have listed here, Schrader and Klein LLC. They're on tonight's agenda for consideration of contracting with us for professional assistance with the TIF program. So it's not unusual for us to seek professional help on major projects. These examples clearly show that the city, as a normal prudent business practices, hire expert professional firms to assist us with important projects. So why did the committee vote to have the city staff undertake this issue that is so vital to our pay plan? The city's employee payroll is over $9 million a year, counting the part-time employees. Don't we want to be as thorough, fair, and accurate as possible with this information? 4 expert personnel consulting firms submitted proposals for our consideration. Their fees ranging from $10,000 to $50,000 to complete our request. All were highly qualified to assist us with our pay plan objectives plus more. The least expensive proposal of the 4 was from Public Sector Personnel Consultants. They provided 12 pages of information about their firm, including telling us that they specialize in these services, have implemented classification and compensation plans for more than 1,000 public employers nationwide, including 325 municipal employers. That's a lot of folks that they work for. They've been doing this a long time. Their professional services are customized to the needs of their clients, and they staff over a dozen regional offices nationwide. References were provided, and a 25-item list of available services was provided. To me, this seems to be perfect in all areas for our needs. The cost, the objectives, the comprehensiveness of their work, combined with their prevailing rates calculations and strategies for implementation, tell me that this council will be getting much more relevant data than we ever could by overburdening our own staff with this endeavor. So why don't we vote to hire the professional firms that are experts in the field of personnel? Our directors will be busy with implementation of a new budget in October. The Tarleton fall semester will be underway with the local population increasing substantially, keeping our public safety staff busy. 2 other directors will be busy winding up many street projects, including Alexander Road, as well as economic development work of a possible TIF program, annexation, and hopefully user-friendly building brochures will be being printed for our greater city growth. We have a lot going on. I cannot support putting more work on the city staff. This decision should be obvious and easy to make. I will vote no on any motion to assign this task in-house. One council member said in the meeting, hire the consultant, but be ready to see the results. I welcome quality, professional, third-party information to assist us with a $9 million annual budget expense, and at a cost of only about $10,000. I'm willing to invest that to achieve our goal of fair, competitive pay plan for all of our city employees. The chair of the Personnel Committee voted no on doing it using our own staff. I agree with that. And I encourage each of you to join in voting yes for the experts in the field to tackle this important endeavor. I do believe our best course of action is hiring the public sector personnel consultants. Thank you for listening to this lengthy offering. And that concludes my comments, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, one added thing. I ran across this. We've been given numerous information about payroll and budget and so forth. And this is dated, it's stapled together. Stapled together, has Thursday, July 11th, 2013 on it. It's from Mark to all of us, but on the back, as one of the items, it shows some 2007 survey information, and it's complete except the city of Weatherford doesn't have any amount down there for what their annual budget is. I think that if we hire the right firm to do it, we'll have complete information, and our staff can continue to do the great job that they are on the projects that we have underway. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Taylor.
Thank you. Russ, I appreciate the lengthy process you put into your thoughts, and I do share some of those concerns. This was actually something that I had discussed with Mark, and I had brought up the idea of bringing in these consulting firms. And I'm not opposed to eventually having a firm that does provide the type of service that we use for our benefits program, like Wethy and Associates. However, with regard to the cost, we keep talking about $10,000 and $12,000, whichever it is. I'm not going to nickel and dime it, but I will say that the list of expenses was provided by this public sector firm, and here they are. They would provide total compensation with benefits survey. That amount was $8,500. They would draft a pay plan development and implementation options. That was $1,500, with a total of 10 so far. Next on their list, they have on-site meetings, employee briefings, draft reviews, presentations at $1,300 each. There's no description of how many times they're going to drive to Stephenville. There's no description of how many phone calls they're going to make. We could be looking at a $40,000 price tag or the same information that we could receive from staff. And so that was my turning point on why I went from inviting staff to bring this information to us and then voting against it. I would like to explain my vote there, and that's why I'm going to support my motion.
Okay, any other discussion?
I'm not yea or nay on this, but it sounds to me like that might be a little bit along the lines of union representation, when you gotta go out and have somebody else take care of your business for you.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, hearing.
Mayor, I would just like to add in response to Councilmember Cashin's comment, right under their costs, they say our work plan is flexible and total cost negotiable. We will discuss, modify, add, or delete any work task to increase the project's responsiveness to the city's needs and financial resources. That indicates to me that we can put a ceiling through negotiation with them on what we're planning on spending, and that, you know, there won't be any runaway spending, there'll be a limit, and we'll know exactly what all we're gonna be getting for that. I would request a roll call vote, Mayor.
Okay, let me see if there's any other discussion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Hogan?
just being a committee member, one of the folks that voted against hiring an outside firm, from my perspective, it was more of trying to save some money for the city. You're talking about, I don't think it's gonna be $10,000. I think that once you add in the flights and the gas and all the extra fees that the consultant's gonna charge you, I think it'll be 15 or 20. We got a senior citizen center that's crumbling. We need 911 dispatchers. We have no internet-based emergency notification system. There's a lot of areas that we can spend $12,000 on. I think that'll provide a better value to the city than this compensation survey. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, then I'll call for, proceed to vote then, and place one.
Aye.
Let me restate the motion. The motion was to approve the staffing and compensation study to be performed by the city staff with a deadline of 1 November. So now, Mr. Hogan,
Aye.
Mr. Cross,
Aye.
Mr. Savine,
Aye.
Mr. McDaniel,
No.
Mr. Pendleton,
Aye.
Ms. Taylor.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Nix.
Don't take it personally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
sorry. All right, Mr. Evans.
Yes.
Okay, by vote of 7-1, the motion carries to have the compensation study completed in-house with staff personnel by 1 November deadline. Ms. Taylor?
Thank you, Mayor. Lastly, following the discussion of the committee members, we were provided a survey that had 50 questions on the survey, and it was something that staff prepared and provided to us. And these are questions relating to compensation plans and job descriptions, things like that, that would be presented to a list of cities. And this list of cities was included on the 2012 survey. And we also discussed adding some additional local companies that were also competitors of cities. So with that, in the form of a motion, I would recommend, or I would move that staff use the 50 questions presented in the survey and use the list of cities as well as the local companies included in 2012 survey.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Ms. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Nix, to use the 50 questions that were presented to the committee as the basis of the study, and to also use the list of cities as well as local companies to conduct the survey. Any discussion? Mr. Sveen?
Or is this two motions? Are we doing B and C together then? Or are you making B and C separate? You said
Combine
that-
them. I
So
did
that you
combine
did,
them.
after you said you want to make them separate, you just, okay, I just want to
Did
make sure.
I, did I go back on my word?
Yeah.
That's okay. I don't,
So-
I combined
You're-
them,
you're
yes,
the
I did.
Okay, my question then is related to companies. We talked about companies, and you were gonna make a list of some additional companies to place in there, because it's my opinion that our competitors are not as much Fort Worth, Texas, as it is Andy Hansen, who's building streets and curbs and gutters and building houses and stuff. He's got framers, tractor drivers, et cetera. So we talked about other companies, and you were gonna give us a look at, I just made a suggestion, just turn the yellow pages in Stephenville, Texas. Did you come up with those companies?
We, I did not go through the yellow pages.
Well, I would just-
And I
I would
welcome
just-
anybody that wants to go through the yellow pages to do so. What we, and just so that I am clear now too, you got me, we've committed to stay as focused as we can on any of the HR folks, and then extending beyond those the HR organization locally, and then extending it to anybody else that we can seek information from.
Okay.
And again, we welcome anybody. If you'll tell me who you think will give us that information, we'll take the information, is what
Well,
we're really trying to state.
Well, I just encourage citizens and companies, when you're asked, for feedback on surveys, say
Please
that we participate, we need that information. The one thing that we didn't put in here, Martha, I thought about this after the committee meeting, is it was kind of somewhat, I think it was presented in one of the proposals, it wasn't called a workflow study, but what it addresses things, it talked about compensation, job descriptions, et cetera, which in a sense kind of addresses, for example, in this department, we have 4 of something. Why do we have 4 instead of 2 versus 8? So that was kind of in one of the proposals that Russ was talking about. So in the process, somehow I would hope that we would look at workflow, because two of the biggest questions I brought to council, committee, and publicly is like in public safety, for example. We've got a list of X number of employees we need in police department. We need X number of employees. We talked about 911 response. We talked about, or dispatch, excuse me. We've talked about other kinds of things, and that really isn't part of the staffing study from what I can remember our conversation. So somehow is that going to be part of that process? Like someone asked me the other day, in this department, I know we have X number of employees. Why do we have that many employees? And I said, well, because that's what the staff asked for, and they said what they said they need. We don't really know. It's not an objective kind of measure. It's what's brought to us from history. So somehow I'd like for us to include.
Well,
Charlton's Career Center is a great resource for what you guys are talking about. That's where I go to make sure I'm competitive in the marketplace.
Okay, good. So I'm not asking to modify the motion, but that's something that we, when you look at compensation, the issue is we're paying somebody X number of dollars a month or a hour or whatever. Then there's also how many hours do you have of those people, and there's also what are the benefits you pay those people. Everything from, vacation time. If you have a water employee who takes dollars up front, is on vacation, you don't necessarily hire somebody extra to come in and cover. But when a police officer is on vacation, you got to cover his shift because we have X number of people on shift. So somehow, when it gets down to the $9 million in our budget for personnel, that's as big of an issue that drives what our costs are as necessarily what we pay somebody on their paycheck per hour. And somehow we need to address that as a committee. And I wasn't sure how to say that the other night in the committee meeting. So
All right.
just a comment. I'm not necessarily
So-
saying
so
the
why don't
motion
we-
against the motion. I just think it's something
Yeah.
we need to address
Okay.
in this process when we start looking at budget as well as pay schedule.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, and we'll proceed to vote then. All those in favor of approving the salary questions and the list of cities as well as local companies for the survey to be completed, the study, excuse me, to be completed by 1 November, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Okay, that's 7 yes, 1 no. Before we leave this topic, do you got anything else, Martha?
Nothing further, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Let me just say that I applaud the committee's work in getting us to this point. This is a big deal for 2 reasons. One, it is $9 million of our budget. So for us to worry about how much money we're spending to get it done right is not as big a deal as us getting it done. And I think that we all understand that we have a pay plan, a policy that was published in 2009 that has not been implemented. Okay? We don't have implementation of that plan. This is the first step toward that. And so we need to stay on task with that, and I really applaud the committee's work to do that. But we will have this to us by the 1st of November, which is the completed study. And I want to clarify that point here before we move on. That's not the results of the survey by 1 November. That's the completed study by 1 November. And then we need, as a council, I think, to really commit to following through to commit to what is in the plan. And Mr. Hogan, I know that you said there's a lot of things in the budget to worry about, but let's don't forget that taking care of the people on the city staff and their pay is important. So it's not just a $9 million dollar figure, it's also, are we properly compensating? And I think we need to also go into this with full transparency, because there may be some areas that are overpaid and some that are underpaid. And the survey's gonna help reveal that. That's one of the purposes of this. So, it's a great first step in the right direction, and we just need to stay on it to follow through. So Martha, thanks to you and your committee for that work.
Mayor,
Yeah, yes, sir.
I have one final question. Is there anyone in the room that can tell me the expected percentage return reply when we send them the questionnaire, these other cities? Do we even know what percentage to expect as far as return replies go to our survey?
I'm sorry, I can't
So it
answer
could
that,
be
I don't know.
20, 30%?
I do not know the answer to that, sorry.
Okay. All right, then we'll move on to the Public Works Committee report. Yeah.
You voted yes.
Can I change my mind?
It's too late.
Okay, Mr. Nix, Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. On July 16th, the Public Works Committee met for an update of the long-range water supply. Mr. Williams provided us with an in-depth look at where we are today and what some of the projections were on where we needed to be, according to a study that was done projecting out to the year 2050, I believe. I'll not go into all the details of that, but he gave us information about our wells, the existing wells and well fields, and the fact that we are more fortunate than many communities because we have the option of using surface water to blend with our groundwater that we have used for so many years. We have the pump station in Dublin that receives treated water, and we transmit that to Stephenville, which we blend with the groundwater and retreat before it enters our system. That fluctuates some based on demand, but 8 to 10% of that is coming from that supply right now. Because we have that supply, it should, and we intend for it to allow us to rotate some of our wells and our well fields and extend the life of some of those wells, and hopefully be good stewards of the aquifer as we strive to conserve the water and be as conscientious as we can about that, and at the same time providing for citizens. One of the key issues in my mind when we discuss economic development and growth is the ability for the city to provide public safety issues, fire, police protection, as well as the ability of the city to provide the utilities which provide water and wastewater for the existing and potential growth that we hope to see in the future. And I believe Mr. Williams and his staff have done an outstanding job of protecting and maintaining what we have, and continue to lead us forward and give us guidance in the directions that we need to go. There was no recommendation from the committee. It was an information meeting. There's no action necessary by the council, but I do want to commend Mr. Williams for the report that he gave and tell him how much we appreciate the work that he and his crew do. Hot or cold, wet or dry, day or night, they're out there providing the water for us, and they do an outstanding job for that.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Nix?
Mayor, I've got a question. Alan, I appreciate your report. Of course, I'm on the committee as well. And I'm a little surprised that you've given a pretty rosy report, because I'm a little bit surprised that you didn't mention the age of some of our water wells and the age of some transmission lines. And, you know, I appreciate your optimism, but I really wish you'd mentioned maybe some of the things that aren't so rosy.
Mr. Evans?
The citizens have a right to know.
Well, and we have 30 production wells, I believe, right now, and some of them date back from the 40s. And because of the age of some of those wells, we will be looking to either rehabilitate or replace those wells depending on demand in the future. Some of those are probably going to be done in the near future, some probably long term. And part of Mr. Williams' presentation was the fact that we need to be mindful of this, and that we need to be mindful of the fact to continue to look forward and be able to provide the necessary places and opportunities to provide some of these new wells that we're going to need in the future. The surface water supply that we have from Lake Proctor is tenuous at best because of our position in the priority listing of that water conservation district over there, or the water district, I'm sorry. And because of that, they may at any time reduce the water that we have available to us, and or they may decide to change the pricing structure, in which case either one of those could be detrimental to our citizens. And I think, and part of his presentation, and I probably should have brought that up, was that we need to be mindful of this, and that we need to be proactive in our seeking opportunities to provide more wells and to rehabilitate and continue to maintain the wells that we have. Did that address your concerns, Mr. Evans?
Would you mind mentioning the number that we've had available for expenditure for a number of years now to drill some more wells that we haven't spent? You might want to explain the water district why we haven't spent the money.
I'm not sure of the question, but I'll take a shot at it.
Well, the number's $1 million. Does
Okay.
that remind you of anything?
In the past, the city has been able to drill wells on a relatively small acreage, and we sought to do this along certain corridors where we felt there was water available, and also to minimize the need for more transmission lines. So we tried to develop fields in areas where we could use existing lines. The Water Conservation District, in their wisdom, decided that those tracts of lands were too small for us to develop a well on. And by their new regulations, we will not be able to use those two that we still have that we did not put a well on. And this is another reason, perhaps, and this may be where your thinking is going, that before the water district changes their mind again, we may want to go out and secure some land and or water rights somewhere to be able to drill some wells and continue to provide that before the rules change again. There is money available for that from some previous bonds, if my memory is correct, to do some water improvements and some water issues, and specifically well drilling would be one of those things that would fall into that category.
Mayor?
Mr. Savine.
I'm going to defer a question, or ask Mark a question here. When we had your committee meeting, you made me have a finance committee meeting the same day. If you'll remember that, because you're talking about all the money we're going to have to spend, where we're going to get it.
I did not schedule that meeting, Mr. Speen.
I think that you went to city administrator and asked for that to be done, Mr. Friend. Anyway, the question came up, and in the conversation, I'd like for us to address that to the public, because it is both the water system is called an enterprise by state law, is a business separate from the rest of the city business. It's supposed to be intended to fund itself, to pay for itself through collections. And in our current system, we have some debt service that's going to run out here in a certain period of time, which will then give us some liquidity to do some other things with. So can you give us an idea of the date that is and how much we currently are paying in debt service that would run out?
We are paying almost $2 million a year in debt service in our utility fund.
In the
It's 1.9.
That's water and
something.
sewer.
And that is water and sewer. The sewer infrastructure, I believe I'm correct, and again, we'll be talking about this some more next week, but I'm pretty sure our sewer debt was finally paid for this year. Now, we've talked about some reissuance here, but where we are just this minute. But more exciting news, and again, it's the good news, bad news type stuff, but about $2 million in debt, and we are right now at our debt service level. We will be out of debt and have zero debt at this point. We will make our last payment in 2019.
On the water side?
On the water and sewer
And
side.
sewer both.
The water and sewer is accounted for in the same fund right now and is accounted for differently. And enterprise doesn't mean too many people. And again, it's all of our operations, but we do account for it differently. And that difference is we it's not government. It's user fees. It's not taxes.
Tax dollars.
And so therefore,
That's what the intent is.
and the intent is
But we
to-
have for quite a while used some tax dollars to supplement some of the operations cost of that fund.
Not in the water and sewer fund, not yet. And we have subsidized we've subsidized landfill, we subsidized the airport, which are user fee-based type programs. So, but, and again, let me just kind of follow up to that same discussion. At the same time, we've talked about our underfunding of our lines. And both water and sewer lines, and what we've been doing now, as well as what we did discuss here also, is that we've spent so many years trying to establish the diversity and the capacity, the supply of water, and that has been where a lot of our debt structure has been placed, if you would, and it has, again, we're getting to an exciting point in time where we're going to be able to continue to work on some more diversity with our finances, and that's really what you're trying to refer to. But please don't diminish. Our lines have suffered because of that, and we're going to continue to have to keep that in focus, as well as balancing the supply and where we are. And then the last piece I just want to kind of state is that we did discuss, not just in our water and sewer, because I refer to it as my public speech. Our sewer capacity, we're permitted for 3 million gallons, and we're averaging about 1.5 million a day. So we're at about 50% capacity of that. With the addition of the surface water, our references were, let's just say we have a supply of about 6 million, and we're averaging about, I believe it's 1.5 to 2, so basically a third. So we've addressed some real, I get back to the capacity issues, the supply issue, and now we've been focusing more on, how can we sustain these things now?
Well, the issue with, Mayor, with anything is not just how much it costs, but the method of how you pay for what it costs. And I think that the liquidity issue is going to give us a lot of flexibility to address some of these things in the near future.
Okay, thank you. Other comments?
Mayor, I have a question for Councilmember Dix. Maybe you shared with the audience and the public this information, but since we're talking about full disclosure to the public, did you report the percent of the city's water usage that comes from Lake Proctor at the current time?
Yes, sir, I believe I did. I think that's somewhere between 8 and 10%.
8 and 10%.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
I must have missed it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Mark, when was the bond approved?
2003 or 2004 was
Okay.
that particular issue.
And what are the restrictions on the use of that? Or are there? Is it water system, or is it wells, or is it water sewer?
And I'm sorry, I didn't look at it immediately.
Okay.
What we told the public, and what we told the public is that I believe the issue was around $7 million, and 6 something is what I'm remembering, and we took, that allowed us to run the pipeline and build the pump station in Dublin, and that because there was still the ongoing discussion, we had earmarked $1 million to be able to drill some additional wells, and I believe I told you earlier today too that
Okay.
The rules of the game changed.
Okay. Well, if you wouldn't mind, I think it
But I
would
will
be
look that up
helpful
again.
for us to have that language from the bonds so we know what flexibility we have, because, the water and sewer lines, and, Alan, you've talked about this, and their condition are important in this discussion. For the council, we've got $1 million that we're talking about. and how to spend that. And what's the wisest choice of those dollars? They're not ours, they're the taxpayers' dollars. We are faced with having a study that supports our decisions that was done in 1999. Where were you in 1999? Remember Y2K? The rural and ag data in that report is from 1995. How many business owners want to make $1 million decision based on something that was in 95 and 99? I spent some time this weekend looking at that report and Nick's presentation, and I found something very interesting. The assumptions, and this statement is tied to, we need to understand what the capacity is for our system. Because the report says that our current capability is 7.124 million gallons a day. And we're using somewhere around 2 million gallons a day. So like Mark said, we're a third or less of what our supply is.
That's really not accurate because that's not a sustainable supply.
That figure takes into account a 90% production rate. It's not everything full open. So that number is throttling things down so they can run at a rate lower than maximum. We can talk about that, but
Well, the numbers you throw out are important.
Right.
Because we're, the
Right.
condition of our system, the condition of our wells, there's a number of issues. When you talk about maximum capacity for
Right.
a short period of time, 24 to 48 hours versus a sustainable
Right.
60 to 90-day capacity.
Yes, sir. And so before I gave a number tonight, I made sure that it was the 90% production number, not the 100% production number. Okay? The point is that we are at roughly 30% of our capacity. So the question is, when do we run out of water? Well, the study says that we have an issue in 2050. But the study assumes that we are increasing use over time. Okay, so I went and looked at 2002 to 2012, the same numbers that Nick gave us. Okay? Our consumption versus what the study says is 30% less. Okay? In other words, that study said that we would be up here in consumption when in reality we're here. So my guess is that 2050 isn't 2050. 2050 may be 2070. It may be 2060. There's some point in time where we have an issue with our capacity, but it's not 2050 anymore. But we don't know what that is. And I think the committee and the great work the staff is doing owes it to our $1 million decision to be able to understand better what those numbers are. So that as we proceed, we know when the time is right, because we all know that we have water and sewer infrastructure in this community that have been underinvested. We haven't been spending enough money on our water and sewer, and we've got some very significant infiltration issues on our sewer system. And so I think we need to ask ourselves, is that $1 million better spent on a well or somewhere else in the water system? And I'm not suggesting one answer is right or another. What I'm suggesting is that we've got a study that is too old for us to make that decision, and we ought to ask ourselves, how do we get more current information about that? Because it's kind of like saying that you've got somebody telling you got to replace your 20-year roof, okay? And you walk outside and you look at the shingles and you say, well, those shingles look different than the guy next door. Let me go find out what those shingles are. And you call a roofing company in town. They come over and they tell you, you know what? You don't have a 20-year roof. You've got a 30-year roof. How are you going to spend your money for your family now that you know you've got a 30-year roof versus a 20-year roof? I bet you're going to spend it on the next greatest need. You're not going to spend it on the roof. That's kind of the way we need to look at this water issue. What is our capacity versus our demand? Nick's numbers tell us that our demand is 30% less than what the study assumed it would be. And I'm not saying that we don't need more surface water and we don't need more well water in the future. I just think that we need to consider, and Alan, if you don't mind, you know, with the committee, you know, looking into this and seeing, you know, what is the capacity need, and how can we make a best decision for the use of those dollars. And, you know, the money's been sitting around since 2003, measured twice, cut once. Just a simple way of looking at it. So, any other thoughts or comments?
I've got a quick thought.
Mhm.
I mean, Mayor, you bring up some good points, but one other thing to kind of throw out there to think about, using your roofing example, I think if that contractor told you in 10 years it's going to cost 4 times as much to replace that same roof, you might think a little differently how you allocate your resources when it comes to purchasing that roof. Same with the water supply. If it's going to cost us, we don't know what the cost is going to be in 10, 15, 20 years, nor the availability of that. And so I think that's what makes this water issue such a crucial issue to our cities, because there's too many what ifs. So it's kind of a quick issue for us to think about.
Right, and the what ifs, you know, the information we have right now is 1999 information, so, anyway, we'll, I guess, look at this within the committee and look at the capacity and kind of move forward from there.
Are you requesting that the committee evaluate this, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
And I'll take that under consideration. I will tell you that it is my opinion that what was just said by my esteemed colleague needs to be repeated over and over and over. The cost of drilling these wells is going to continue to escalate. In my opinion, the surface water will be less and less available, and if either one of those is correct, which we know the price tag of drilling a well will escalate, it might be in our best interest now to replace some of those 70-year-old wells with one that will produce, and that we won't have to worry about the associated problems with having a well and wells in a well field that are as old and have produced water for as many years and as stressed as they are.
Right, and we can talk about this. I mean, the infiltration in the wastewater system, and the fact that 1/3 of our meters are not accurate, and we're losing $250,000 a year in you know, fee collection. Those are current issues. You know, Brady, to your point, the price of water and sewer lines is going to grow as the same rate as drilling. So, I mean, it's a circular argument at that point, and so I think I would just ask the committee to consider whether or not it's important enough to bring back to the council the use of data from 1999 to make a $1 million decision about how to invest in competing priorities between water and sewer infrastructure and drilling a well at this time. So, okay, with that, let's just move on to agenda item 9, which is the TIF Alliance report, and the Finance Committee, Mr. Savine.
Thank you, Mayor. Probably the biggest issue, the most repeated issue brought to me by citizens is economic development for Stephenville. Mr. Hansen's here today, and he's doing a lot to help develop Stephenville, and I appreciate that, what you've done. I think that, you know, we have to be careful how we do development, but we have to have development, because if we don't develop, if our values don't go up, then the only option we have is to raise taxes. And there's not a person in this room, I don't think, that wants to raise taxes. So the option to generate more revenue to pay for, whether it's improved sewer systems, water systems, new wells, streets, whatever it is, we're going to have to figure out how to assume the cost of inflation and the growth of Stephenville, and Stephenville is growing. Not only is it growing, it's going to grow at a tremendous rate. We met with Tarleton 5-6 months ago, something like that, at an all-day meeting. I appreciate their involvement. I think one of the things you told us is we're going to have how many new students it grows will be 400 to 500 new people every year. So in 10 years, we have 7,000 on this campus now, and a little more than that. So in 10 years, we're going to have somewhere around 12 to 14,000 students in Stephenville, Texas. Well, that's one of the things Mr. Hansen's working on. Also, we have a project over on Wolf Boulevard that's doing the same thing, which is a great project for us, I think, for the city of Stephenville. So we're going to have to figure out how to do that sort of thing so that we can accomplish the growth in our town, do it in a way where our revenues go up without having to increase the cost per valuation for people's property, because if we don't do that, then we're in trouble. There's all kinds of issues, and one of the things that I want to give credit to the mayor about is he brought the issue of the TIF to us to consider. And a TIF, for those who are not familiar with, is called a Tax Increment Financing Alliance. What that is, it's a unique way that cities have, or government entities, particular cities and I guess counties, have the ability to creatively do things to increase infrastructure, to improve city services in certain areas, and it is primarily in areas that have been underserved over the last however long, and that need services. And those are the infrastructures we're talking about. We're talking about water systems, sewer systems going down. We've talked about curb and gutters tonight. We've talked about streets. All that sort of stuff, that's infrastructure, which is exactly down the line of what a TIF does to help fund those kinds of services. Well, several of us, it was actually Mark went with us, and you and I and Scott went over to Fort Worth and visited with one of the TIFs. I think they have 10 TIFs, is that correct?
Is it 14?
Maybe 14. And what they do, just for the general citizens, what they do is they go into an area that the term they use is blighted. I'm not sure that's a good term. It's kind of an insulting term, but it's a term that doesn't have the services that it needs, and says we're going to do something where we go in and we're going to set the valuation, the tax value for the city and the county, hopefully, would come in and say, here's what our base is. We're not going to raise taxes in that area. So if it's a $50,000 in property tax, that we collect $50,000 for the length of the valuation, or the length of the TIF. And then the TIF will have a nonprofit board. It'll be a nonprofit organization with a board then that comes in and says, all right, we're going to do certain things to improve this part of the community. And that board then takes input from the citizens. It has the neighbors come in, the businesses involved get to participate and say, here's my skin in the game, I'm going to do this. Well, when we went to Fort Worth, what we saw was, and it's generally speaking, it is down, is it Rosedale? Is that goes east and west? Mm-hmm. Rosedale. From Rosedale and south, it's a little bit north of Rosedale as well, and it's called Fort Worth South. It's a TIF, and it's just one of their areas. And it goes way south, almost down to the seminary, and it goes from I-35, just a little bit east of I-35, I think, all the way back over to where Rosedale intersects with I-30. And it took an area that was pretty well developed in 1930s, 1940s, and it basically ran down. You know, the business, matter of fact, Scott made a comment that he used to do business over there with some of the businesses, and what'd you say? Something about they used to take their cash registers home with them at night because
They didn't have a cash.
they didn't have a cash, they all did it out of their pockets. Well, you go in that part of Fort Worth now, and it is a booming part of the city. And they did some really unique things, and it was some simple things like taking a 4-lane street and turning it into a 2-lane street with a turn lane in the middle and putting a bicycle path on the side. What they did was they found studies that says that if you drive by a business at 40 miles an hour, you're less likely to stop than if you're driving by 30 miles an hour. So they just slowed traffic down. And by doing so, they also put where everybody drives by that business, because you're not on the inside lane, you're in the lane, the one lane. So it did all kinds of things, and it developed. It's a tremendous, I invite everybody to go see it, and I just applauded Fort Worth for what they did. So from that, the Finance Committee requested that we requested an individual to come, and he was with Schrader Klein. Is that how you say that? I happened to be not in town, but they had a town hall meeting and invited several people to come to the town hall meeting, and he discussed what a TIF was. Had a pretty good turnout as well, from what I understand. Based on that, he made a proposal, and he gave us a proposal. We had actually, how many proposals did we actually receive? Do you remember?
No. We've only consulted one firm, and then this is his proposal to provide those services. There are other firms out there
that said that they might be interested.
He's done a lot of work in this area, so.
And so he came up and proposed 2 processes. One is a contract to do a study to say, here's what, if we were to do a TIF in this area, and I'll just mention, for those that are here, and I don't know if it's in y'all's minutes or not, the handout that you received, but we're talking about the area we're discussing is from Harris Methodist Hospital on the north boundary it'll go to the south boundary, which is the city park. The west boundary is Tarleton, and the east boundary is just the other side of Fuzzy's Taco over by the river. That's a part of town that it's a primarily commercial area. Our intent is to try to tie those areas together and to see what we can do to increase business opportunity and development. Let me give you an example of what they did in Fort Worth. The TIF would come in and say, here's an area that the sidewalks, half of them aren't any good. They're dangerous, they're broken. And so they came in and they fixed sidewalks where the sidewalks were bad. They went in and took old-timey streetlights and put up beautiful streetlights and just handicapped accessibility on the corners of the streets and so on. And because of that, the people in the neighborhood started saying, well, that looks really nice. Let me see what I can do to my house. I'll paint my house, or I'll do this part to improve my property. And businesses started moving in, and the whole area has taken off. I can't remember the actual numbers. I didn't bring them with me, but the taxable value has increased enormously because of the investment that both the TIF did as a leader and the businesses and individuals in the area said, I'm willing to put my skin in the game because I want to be part of that. It was a great idea. So as a result, the committee requested that we get together and see if we couldn't get participants from the community to come and say, I'll put some skin in the game to do this process. And the first process would be a study to say, what would we do? What would a TIF look like here? That's all, just to look around at businesses and do a survey. And then the second process, once we've done that, if we agree that we want to do it, then would be to contract to actually create a TIF and help us get it going. So that was our process. So Mayor Weldon, myself, Casey Hogan, who's on the Finance Committee with me, Malcolm Cross, who's also on there, and Mark Kaiser, we met with a group of people from the area, which I think are the leaders that will have the skin in the game. And on this list, if you don't have it, I don't know if everybody has it in a handout, but Tab Thompson, our county judge, was there. Dr. DeTavio and Rusty Juergens from the university were there. July Danley and Milo from the Chamber of Commerce were there. Ron Mullins, Christopher Liu from the hospital, Ron Mullins from Stedco. Meta Collier with Keep Stephenville Beautiful, and the Historical Society, Dorothy Farrar and Sherry Knight were there as well. And from that, we requested who in the room would be willing to help us put skin in the game. If you really want to have this development, you need to help us do that process. So they went back and talked to their boards and their committees and stuff, and we now have Stedco has this first process, which is $15,000 contract, right? The part one would be a $15,000.
The first phase of that.
Yeah, phase one. We have commitments from Stedco for $1,500. Tarleton has agreed to do $1,500. Texas Health Hospital has done. Did they go to?
They raised theirs to $1,500.
So they went from $1,000 to $1,500.
They just informed us today.
Today.
So I'm sorry. Yes.
And Chamber of Commerce has donated $500 of their money. And KSB, Keep Stephenville Beautiful, was going to discuss it, and then the County Commissioners Court is going to deliberate the matter. And I understand that today?
Yesterday afternoon, the mayor and I did visit with
the judge. And discuss
he has not discussed it with the Commissioners Court yet.
But what he's going to do is he plans to discuss that after y'all's meeting, explaining what the process is. He's going to go before the Commissioners Court. So that process is, we'll wait and see how their participation. It is a great opportunity, and what I'm going to do, Mayor, is I'm going to recommend that we take this before Finance Committee and consider this to bring before the full council. That's my report. If there's any questions, I'll defer to Mark. No, I was teasing.
I have a question.
Okay.
Of the $5,000 in donations, there's a big distinction to me whether or not we're talking about, is that toward the phase one, 15,000?
Yes.
That is.
That's what we asked them for.
Okay.
We talked
All
about
right,
to them
so
about.
phase one,
We said,
okay.
we're ponying up for phase one. If it works and it works out well, we'll come back and ask them for part for phase two.
Okay, very good distinction, thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions for Mr. Savine?
Doug, are you referring this back to your committee for?
Yeah, the committee has not voted it as a motion to the full council, so I'm going to recommend it go to Finance Committee.
To make a recommendation to the council?
Yes,
Okay.
and I will recommend to the council that they bring it to council, but I'm going to let the committee do that.
Okay, gotcha. I'm curious, as you discussed with these other entities, to me, a partnership is an equal sharing of the expense, and obviously that's not the case. Did they give you any indication that they would be more willing to to more equitably share the expense should we go to the next step?
You're referring to this group of people at the bottom or
Yes.
anybody in particular?
Well, the ones that you have approached.
They all discussed what they could do. For example, Chamber of Commerce, obviously, their budget, we basically set their budget for them by giving them tax dollars. And so they don't have a lot of money. Tarleton, you know, one of the things they do in the big areas, like Fort Worth, for example, one of the things they recommend is you go to the big players. Who's gonna be tying this together? And that's why we picked the hospital at the north and Tarleton on the west. So they will benefit from as much as anybody. Now, they have requirements, needs to fund infrastructure for their kids. Councilman Taylor is wanting to revitalize downtown, the whole downtown business district, you know, and whatever. This process can do all of that over time. So we have not requested a particular amount. We asked, how much can you participate? And that's what they immediately committed to. As a matter of fact, I'd say the biggest player in the game was Tarleton, really. And Dr. Tavio, he took it upon himself to, which I really appreciate, he's gone over and met with the TIF, the Fort Worth South, and met with them, and he, at the meeting, came back and he said, I'm completely committed to this. This is a potential boom for Tarleton State University in Stephenville. And everybody on this group, other than the Commissioners Court and the judge, wasn't able to speak for the court because he's like us. You know, he has a group that has to vote together. But no one who attended this meeting, anybody here, not a person, had anything negative. They're all just like, this is a potential boom for Stephenville. And the most important thing I think we need to consider is it's not just funding the infrastructure problems we have, it's the method of funding them. And if we don't develop, and it's a simple process, if a house down the street here is worth $60,000 today, and tomorrow it's worth $70,000 because we did something nice to the neighborhood, then at some point that $10,000 comes back to Stephenville. When the TIF is over with, that value now becomes our property tax as well. And I don't think any one of us on this council is willing to stand up and vote, which we're going to have to do in the next few weeks. We're going to have to vote on taxes. And every time we get up here, I can see everybody in their boots is up there and says, well, what do we do? Because we have all these needs. And the best way to do it is through sales tax, which is developing our businesses in town. Tarleton's the #1 player in that. If we didn't have Tarleton, we wouldn't be the city we are today because of all the business they bring to Stephenville. The other part is our property values. And that's the most important way. And Stephenville's property, I don't know about y'all, my property values hadn't gone down in the last 5 or 6 years when the economy took a tank. It stayed pretty stable. It'd be really nice to capitalize on that. If you'll notice, I do business in 8 other communities, and the values of properties are starting to go up. And it'd be nice to be able to capitalize on that and do something creative. The most exciting part about it, I think it is to allow a group of people who have skin in the game to say, I want my neighborhood to do this. Here's $100,000 or $200,000. I want to spend it here. And it really takes burden off us. We have to approve it. Their budget's approved by us. But they manage it. And it is the word revitalization, I think, is an understatement for what it's done to South Fort Worth. And I encourage everybody here, anybody on the council needs to go by. If they're going down shopping downtown, drive by Fort Worth South. Just go down to Rosedale and turn south, anywhere near the hospital, and just look at what they've done. There were places in town that I can assure you, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, after dark, no one walked. And we walked around and saw mothers pushing their babies into the parks, and the way that the curbs looked, and the businesses, and the parking issues, and traffic. It was incredible, the change. And the TIF do it all? No. But it was the direction of the council of Fort Worth to say, we're going to target this part of town, and we're going to make it better. And they did it through the TIF, and they allowed a group of people, businesses, et cetera, to come in and say, this is what we want our part of town to look like. And I think that's exactly what this council needs, is to seek input from the community. I don't know if that answered your question.
We'll look forward to discussing that at the committee.
Good. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other comments? Okay, let me address your comment, Mr. Nix, with this. We met in July, and I think the council was ready to move forward with this. And you had asked the question, is there interest? And so I committed to you at that time to see if there was. And so we struck out on a path to do that. And today, Stedco, Tarleton, Texas Health, Chamber, Keep Stephenville Beautiful, have, and And the county, I will clarify what the judge said in our meeting yesterday, is supportive of the idea, but cannot commit to dollars until he meets with the Commissioners Court. It is highly unusual for a city to ask for help to create a TIF. And here we have a commitment of 2/3 of the initial study to be able to move forward with the idea of just understanding, is this financially feasible or not?
1/3.
1/3, excuse me. 5,000 of the 10,000.
I'm pleased that you were able to get some interest in this, because I honestly did not know whether the other participants in this would show interest. I'm pleased that they did. This at least gives us a starting place.
Right.
And that was why I asked that they be contacted to see if they would help share the financial burden, since they will also share in the benefits from it.
Right. And I think, one of the things that, Doug, you didn't mention that I think is worth mentioning, and it's something that Mr. Klein, who is the expert in this area, has stated over and over and over again. For the city, this is a no-risk economic development tool. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's not a recurring cost. We eliminated an economic development coordinator position by some votes on the council because of the fear of a recurring cost as part of it. This doesn't have that. It's a one-time expense. It, as Dr. Cross has pointed out, doesn't pick winners and losers. It lets the development occur as it can. For us as a community, it is a no-risk option. And I would just ask y'all, as you look at the Central Business District in Stephenville, and start at the administration building at Tarleton, and just drive down Washington and go to the bridge, and look to your right and your left. Take notice as you drive by the gas station next to Central. Take notice as you drive by the motel next to the museum, and ask yourselves, are you proud of what you see? And what are we going to do about it as a community? The TIF is not about the money. It's about us coming together as a community to make Stephenville better. That's what this is all about. Are we willing to commit to a process that has very little risk to it? No risk to it, or not. And I say no risk because we are guaranteed to get the money back. And you may say, well, how can you guarantee that? Well, as Doug just said, property values are going to increase. We know that. Death taxes and property values increase, okay? So the area that we've described, does anybody in the room think that the property value will not increase by $48,250 sometime in the future? Okay, if you think it won't, then there's risk. If you think it will, there is no risk. So, I mean, that's a way to think about it. How can I try to do something for Stephenville's economic development in a no-risk scenario? Welcome to tax increment financing. And Doug's talked about Fort Worth, but I'll tell you, it's working in Burleson. As a revitalization of now popular areas in Burleson have contributed to the city's economic and social success, other Johnson County cities are looking to do the same. Regular festivals like Boo Bash, Founder's Day, Wine Crawl, Sounds of Summer, Farmers Market, and countless parades give residents and visitors a great reason to come and see the new and improved Old Town of Burleson. And that's from the Economic Development Coordinator there in that city. I tell you, I would encourage the council members to talk to President DeTavio, talk to Ron Mullins, talk to Milo Choate, see what they think about this, and Chris Liu. We don't need to take it for granted that Texas Health is going to stay in the corner where it's at. And this is a way, and one of the reasons that Chris was excited about this is this is a way for us to show the Texas health system that we're committed to where they are. And I think it's a great opportunity. And, you know, I know that there's some questions about how to proceed. That's why we've got kind of a two-step process here. And for me, $10,000 isn't a lot to do that. So,
At least get it started.
right.
You know, I was visiting with some friends at dinner one night several months ago, and was talking about Stephenville, and there were I think there were 16 of us at the table, and nearly everybody had been in Stephenville, Texas. And I just, you know, they talked about this quality of life here versus Austin or Houston where they live, and they said, one of them brought up the issue, said, y'all have the most beautiful courthouse in Texas. Why don't y'all do something with it? Why don't y'all develop it some more? Make that the centerpiece of Stephenville, Texas. I think that's what Martha's been talking about all along with downtown development. You know, we could make this a show. We could make Stephenville the showpiece in this part of Texas. And so that's why I will make a recommendation to committee members or committee to approve the contract.
Okay, so I need a clarification here from Mr. Thomas. Our agenda says consider approval of contract. Does that mean we're referring back to the committee? Does that mean we need to table the motion, or?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
You don't have to approve it. You can if you wish to take it up and take a vote, but you don't have to. And it wouldn't hurt to table it or send it back to the committee if that's what you want to do. But you're not forced into making a yes, no approval or non-approval. You just could.
Okay, all right. Does anyone else like to make a comment then before we proceed? Okay, then with that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Thank you, Mr. Sveen, for that report. The consent agenda.
Mayor, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Been moved by Mr. Nix, seconded by Ms. Taylor to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion?
Is that seconded, Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, good.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the consent agenda is approved as presented. All right, Mr. Kaiser.
I hope Mr. Cood is watching that so he can see how easily that can happen.
I was
That's
asking
right.
where he was when we needed him.
I want to thank the paper for staying to get this piece, because I do, rather than having to contact them again later, I would like to do a pretty comprehensive, as brief as I can, but do a comprehensive overview of the street construction and street projects and the timing of that, especially with school opening. I know there are many people in the public that would like to know, and I know that you probably get many questions, so I'm going to try to kind of fill you in on where those projects are. We did ask the TxDOT official. He is out of the country and unable to be here, but they did provide me with a list of just an update on their projects too. So I'm going to talk about all of the projects that I'm aware of in the community right now from a street construction perspective. Let me take the first one, McElhaney Street. You will notice that it was paved asphalt this last weekend. They do have graduation, I believe, this coming weekend, and we were trying to get all that accomplished to accommodate the traffic that they were going to have, and we were successful in doing that. But we do still have some punch list items, some cleanup, and some other things, and that will not be officially completed for a couple of weeks. But just kind of a heads up there, and I'm very appreciative of the contractor for trying to continue to work with the university to try to meet some of their traffic flow issues. And if you haven't been over there, and I would encourage you, if you can get down it, I know that you can, but again, with still some of the construction signs, it's a very nice improvement. And I can also just tell you that we work very diligently, not only with the university on this project, but also the church there at the corner of, and I'm sorry, I don't know which denomination it is, but the church at the corner of Vanderbilt and McElhaney at working to Once again, we did not assess them for some of those curb improvements, but we were able to replace a few curbs as we made some modifications here. And again, it's a great working relationship, even though I know it was stressful for many, and I know Tarleton was partial inconvenience here. Dale Street, the Dale Street project will not be completed when school begins. There will be a portion of Dale Street that is going to continue to be closed. They are trying to get as much done, and again, we're just going to have to continue to reroute that traffic. It is expected to be completed mid-September. They're getting after it as hard as they can, but again, they're just not going to be able to meet that deadline. We did get the valley gutter concrete poured and several of the drive approaches and some of those other things completed. And the significance there is we can allow people, I believe we're going to be able to do it in phases, but allow people to still use that traffic. So we have to detour around down some residential streets. But again, I just know that the buses use that on a pretty regular basis, so continuing to reroute, but especially the parents that are taking their kids to the Gilbert Intermediate. Dale Street is going to continue to be closed off and on, but pretty much closed until about mid-September. And again, the contractor's very aware of it. They're working as diligently as they can. But in direct regards, 30% complete on the driveway approaches, about 20% complete on all the curb and gutter work, and there's been no actual excavations in that. So I'm just kind of giving you what the status of that. Just Alexander Road will continue to be closed. The construction is ongoing. If you haven't been out there, we have poured a significant amount of concrete, some roads, curbs, and gutters, and continue to work on that. But that project, they gave me the status of that is a 50% completion on the paving. Now, 50% completion is that the estimated completion is the 1st of November. So there's still quite a bit of work to get done and accomplished on that project. So those are the 3 city contracted projects that we have going.
Mark, excuse me just a second. Are they're gonna keep that whole stretch closed during that
They will be
period?
keeping it closed because there'll be the uneven surfaces and a lot of other issues that are going on. So yes, it will continue to be closed until all the transitions are made and tie-ins are appropriate there. But, you know, again, if they can open it sooner, we will. But for all intents and purposes, continue just to think November 1. On the TxDOT projects, and again, I am, you know, if I misspeak, I'll just apologize to TxDOT, but I've got a general feeling that we're relatively accurate here. But the Washington Street overlay project is complete. I'm very, very proud, and I think it's been a significant improvement to the downtown. Just the driving through town now has been really nice. The new striping and all that has been completed. Along the Washington and Ollie thoroughfare, you know that there has been for several years now the request for a traffic signal. We were notified yesterday that the environmental clearance has been completed. We assisted, and I just want to thank Ms. Chu for all the hard work she did here at acquiring, as well as Strickle Rollins in helping us get all this completed. But we did assist them because I believe we did it faster than TxDOT could have. We assist them in acquiring those easements and right-of-ways to finish those locations. But we did get environmental clearance, and their words in their email to me yesterday, to us yesterday, is that they are now able to send this to contractor. They've already have it contracted. It's already been funded. They now can send this to the contractor and say, you can go.
They have picked the contractor.
The contractor has already been picked, yes. My understanding is they're able to say, you know, if you have all your parts and pieces, you can start constructing this. Okay. So that is the status on that signal. They do not have a projected construction date for me at this time. So I'll leave it at that. FM 988, the one that I think many have been asking, and again, I just, with the way they have the construction, it's very tight driving quarters, and especially as we begin to have all the traffic from the parents and students in the area of 988, FM 988 or the Northwest West Loop, please just continue to be very careful. Please observe the warning signs, and please watch out for the construction workers at all times. But J Mills Construction, who does have that contract, is scheduled to prime the half that's been worked, and they're gonna prime it and put a seal coat on top of it. That is scheduled to take place, if it hasn't already started this week or the first part of next week is what they've been instructed to me. They will then place some pavement markings, and then they will move everything over and begin the complete other half, understanding that the seal coat is not going to be the final piece. They will come back after they complete the base structure and then asphalt the entire project. So they're going to scoot over to the other side and do exactly what we've all observed on that other half. They are scheduled to be doing that relatively soon. It is still on schedule and is still planned to complete this project by the middle of September. That was the word from TxDOT today. I'll believe it when I see it, but that's what they said. I'm just telling you what they gave me, okay? The last project I want to refer to, and because I know I still get quite a few questions about it. It's been very exciting. I think it has been a significant beautification effort. But the Green Ribbon Fund, what we've referred to as Green Ribbon Funds, is still under TxDOT's contract and control. So please, if I know that there's been weeds out there, all of those maintenance issues are for 1 year under TxDOT's responsibility, and basically hopefully give it to us in a good, clean, healthy condition, if you would, when it's over with. So it's really under the contractor, but I'm sort of saying under the TxDOT. So I know that when it needed to be mowed, we had to call and do the same things we would do with everybody, but it is not under city's maintenance yet. And so just please understand the differentiation. But I do believe the rains definitely helped a lot. They're continuing to clean that up. I do recognize some of the questions that may be out there about that. But that 12-month maintenance period, it will begin in September of 2013. And again, it is the contractor's responsibility to water it, prune it, mow, trim, replace the dead plants, et cetera, basically to maintain it for a year. So I don't know if you have, but I promise you myself, as well as many of the other staff members, have had some comments about that, and I just need you to understand that, please, in all those respective areas. The other piece of that is that the green ribbons, we did not do all the intersections, and we have applied for another grant to do some of the other intersections, and we were approved for that grant. The plans, designs, and all that construction is not scheduled to take place until next year, but understand we did get accepted to receive that, and those plans and discussions will be at a later time for you, but please just understand that I've called that Green Ribbon Project number 1 and Green Ribbon Project number 2 as far as references are concerned. The last thing, and I feel certain that you don't know, but we all may begin seeing this, while all of our attention is always where activity is going or where it's at right now. I will tell you that in November, TxDOT is projected to let a project to replace and do some erosion control, and they call it a Gabion project under the Bosque River Bridge on 67-377. So the bridge, in essence, in the city park on the South Loop, there's some erosion issues, and they're going to begin some Gabion work, which is basically just erosion control, that is scheduled to be and let in November, so we may see that these next few months, and that was just a project that I was just made aware of and giving you the update on those. So with that said, hopefully we continue to notify the citizens and just ask everybody to be careful. For those that don't know, just another thing, because I just drove by it and have been by there many times in the last couple of days. Please be aware that we do have, in essence, a 4-way stop right now at Tarleton and Ollie as that construction has begun and making some of those transitions there. There's flags up and all these other kind of things, but if you're like me, when I was a student here, I was able to never stop on Lillian Street until I got from stoplight to stoplight. And the minute they put up that stop sign, it was a really difficult habit to break for me. So I just kind of just, please pay attention to the warning signs and be safe. Other than that, I'll be glad to answer any other questions. Next week, we do begin budget work session. We'll start at 5:30. I'm not sure what we'll have to eat yet, but I do plan on having some form of something, because it usually tends to go a little late, at least the first day, if not the next day. Besides maybe how long I talk tonight, Cindy. Okay, I got it. So I'm done. If anybody else has any other questions, I'll be glad to answer anything or give updates on any other reports or status of projects or something.
Trail.
Oh, I'm sorry, which one?
Trail.
I will make, we were notified, and staff in the city has been notified one latter part of last week that one of the grant projects to extend the Bosque River Trail, I know maybe some have gotten an email, some have not, but we did receive official notification from the Texas Department of Transportation as an enhancement project to extend the Bosque River Trail from, in essence, Tarleton Street to the Linglewood Highway, or FM8. The total amount of that stated in there was $1.4 million. Our obligation is, it's an 80-20 project, so our part will be, I guess, another 20% on top of that. And unlike the first project that we did, we are 100% responsible for all the right-of-way acquisition, and so we will begin contacting property owners along the way as we begin. There was some good. It's some very exciting news that we've had there. Again, we did receive. I don't think we've had we received the notification letter a month or so ago about the short extension that we're going to have from the south end of the trail to tie into the park, city park. Mm-hmm. This is basically addressing the north end of the trail. And again, that other funding agreement, I expect it to have that contract, and I believe it's like for $150,000, $180,000, something like that, in our parts. I believe it's kind of an 80-20 type of a program as well. So anyway, a lot of exciting news, a lot of things are going on, and we'll continue to talk about a lot more of those exciting things next week during our budget deliberations.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you, Mark. Just see if there's any comments from the council members. Mr. Hogan? Mr. Cross?
No.
Steen? McDaniel?
I've got a quick question, Mark. We were told in months ago that we have our outdoor warning sirens introduced July. Now we're in August. Can you update us on that? What's the problem, and when can we get them going?
We've had quite a bit of the equipment delivered. The contractor, well, I know between the time that I said that and today, Moore, Oklahoma, and many areas up in the Oklahoma area were hit, and I know that a lot of his attention has been placed up there. And so we've kind of, I hate to say it, but we've sort of been bumped just a little bit. And quite honestly, we are past the storm stage, and so we're willing to work with him and do whatever. They have delivered, I don't know how much of the equipment, but they've delivered quite a bit of our equipment to here. We've got it out in the yard, and they're just trying to schedule the rest of it. We've acquired all but I believe 2 locations as far as site locations, and we're ready to go. Everything is, my understanding is we're in great shape to go. But again, we did kind of get bumped for some other emergencies that kind of got.
And what's our new time frame to have it
I'm sorry, but I have not heard of late, and I'm not sure. Yeah, and the chief hasn't either. But we'll follow back up with him. He has not forgotten us. I do know that he has been very gracious about just letting us know, and he's continued to honor his cost to us. So.
All right. One other quick question. I've had citizens complain to me about the quality of their Northland cable. Is it in their charter that there can't be another cable company come in, their charter or their business with the city?
Not at all.
No,
not at all.
company can come in and go head to head with them without violating any agreement that the city
Well,
has with them.
DirecTV and some of these
Right, the
others.
satellites
do-
are,
do-
but
you know,
I'm talking
but,
about,
you know, if you can afford, you know, I hate to say it, but if you can afford the
Hardwire.
cost to run the hardwire,
Uh-huh.
you can come in here, you know, but I'll be glad to make some comments. I know they've gone through quite a few local manager changes, but
Okay.
I'll be glad to get in touch with them again. I haven't talked to them in a while anyway,
All right.
so
Thanks,
give me a good
Mark.
chance to call them.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Pendleton?
Just two things. Number one, Councilman Savine, and have text Mr. Ken Harris, the Encore, and he said he will get back tomorrow on the exact time of that meeting with the Public Utilities Commission. He thinks it'll start at 9:30, but he's not for sure what exactly will go first. So I'll let you know
Thank you.
when I get that for
Oh.
Friday what the schedule's going to be.
Good.
Second thing is just like to put a quick promo out there for the mayor and I.
Yeah,
We're
that's right.
participating Thursday night in the Hunks, Erath County, handsome Hunks, Erath County. So
Where did that get- who just
encourage
listed that?
all of y'all to come out and to attend that event. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's really exciting. I'm sure the mayor's a lot more handsome than I, so he'll probably win. But looking forward to that event.
But,
and
and
encourage
it's,
public.
Meals on Wheels,
Yes.
is for Erath counties who it benefits, so, yeah, it is great to get out there and you can vote for Brady.
Do we have to vote with money?
That's it.
All right, Mr. Nix, Ms. Taylor, Mr. Evans.
Y'all both qualify as handsome, I guess, but I don't know about hunks. You need to talk to Councilman Steen and I, we understand.
Come on, Alvin.
No,
All
they
right.
didn't say chunks, it was hunks.
Okay. With that, let me thank everyone this evening for the discussion, and I think we'll move now to the executive session, which is the next agenda item, and I will read in compliance with the provisions of the Texas Open Meetings Law, Subchapter D, Government Code, Vernon, Texas Codes annotated in accordance with Section 551071, consultation with attorneys, Section 551072, deliberations about real property, and Sections 551087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations, and adjourn us for that at this time.